Everyone, it's Aaron and Keith. Keith's got his coffee. I don't even have my end of the world mug. This is just a blank mug, but it's, we're at the end of an age, man. Hey, Keith.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad we won't be here.
Right. Yeah. So here's the bottom line. God wins. Jesus wins. He's coming back real soon. He's going to whip this place into shape. And you're going to want to get on the Jesus side because Jesus saves.
Whip this place into shape.
And thank you guys for being here. We're going to talk a lot about eclipses and the sun movement and a lot of crosses and landmarks that where these solar eclipses are coming, specifically over in the U.S. We're going to talk about 2030. There's a couple of eclipses. One fascinating one, which will show up later on in this video, is it's going over the island of Patmos, and it's going over all the New Testament was written in Galatia and Ephesus and Corinth and Thessalonica. Well, there is a solar eclipse that goes over that area in 2030, and there's another eclipse that happens underneath Israel that looks like the face of God is smiling in November. And where these eclipses land, the one in June lands in the head of Taurus, and so we got a lot of exciting things to share. That my introduction is there's a lot of cool things in this video. Keith has got like 45 slides or something like that him and I talked back and forth, and he was designing them, but we were discussing a few things to bring up here. And our brother Carl, he was sending us some really cool information as well, which was leading our studies and thoughts. So this is an exciting thing. We are hoping that the rapture happens as soon as possible. Keith and I are on the same page that let's fly as soon as possible.
Amen.
But so what we're doing is kind of going ahead of ourselves a little bit and looking at all the eclipses, trying to figure out the blueprint of the possible tribulation, when it might start, when it might end. And if that's the case, then that means we got to leave real soon. I'm looking just between Keith and I, we're kind of pointing towards the 8th day of Sukkot in terms of a rapture. That's what we're kind of like looking at next, because what else is there to look at, really, which is coming before this eclipse in October. So we'll talk about that a little bit in this video. So just a little bit of an intro. Keith and I have been discussing a lot on my Discord. So I mentioned my Discord a lot. That's where we have voice chats, Bible studies, prayer times, etc. Lots of encouraging text chats and voice chats to be a part of. And then in that app, you can DM people. And so Keith wouldn't be here if he didn't first comment on some videos and then get to know me in the Discord. So Keith, I appreciate you as a brother. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, your things that you found. So let's get into it. We're going to kind of keep this conversational, but Keith is the main guy that's got all these clips and everything. So let's start. Why don't we pull up your screen here?
Okay.
So your stuff is on there right now. This is Keith's stuff, and he's got a bunch of slides.
Yeah, and I want to also thank Carl. He sent us some great stuff. And also Mark, who was on our last video, he helped me out with a few things. And lots of you commented on our last video that we did. And I hope that I put, that I gave you the credit. But if I don't, I'm sorry. Go on Discord and tell me, and maybe if we do another one, I'll make sure I credit you.
Yeah, but, and I should say too, Keith, there's a lot of people too that leave comments, and I don't thank them properly, because sometimes it's a good comment, then I go searching for something, and then I go back and it's hidden within a bunch of other I can't find it, And so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Body Christ, for just commenting and pointing us in different directions to study and consider.
Amen. Okay, so we're going to talk about one of the scriptures that Aaron brought up at our last video was Exodus 4:8. And it just fits so well with what we're talking about that I kind of kept it as the theme of this presentation. But we're going to be talking about eclipses and the signs and the judgments. And some of the signs and the judgments are what we were talking about last time. And we're going to add some more things that we found. Let's start with, if they will not believe you or pay attention to the evidence of the first sign, they may believe the evidence of the second sign. And that is Exodus 4:8. All the bolding on all the scriptures is my own bolding, so I remember to tell you things. And so the first sign, let's talk about what the first sign that Jesus left for the people after he left. What was the first sign that Jesus gave the world after he left? He said, "A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. As I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love to one another." And so the first sign that Jesus left for the world was us. We're the sign that he left. And what are we supposed to do with that? We're supposed to go ye therefore and teach all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. So we're the sign.
And I will add one thing to the whole sign thing. He was talking about the sign of the son of Jonah. No sign will be given to you except, well, it's pretty believed that there was a solar eclipse at the time of Jonah, which was part of the reason why they probably, repented. So that's another thing. The sign of Jonah was probably likely an eclipse at that time.
That's true. And that it was a very famous eclipse in 700 something BC. And they have lined that up with, probably when Jonah was in Nivea. Did I say that right? And so it does. Jewish rabbis believe that solar signs are for the Gentiles and lunar signs are for the Jews. So that fits with what we're talking about. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. We look at the cross as a sign or a symbol of Jesus. And when people, non-believers see the cross, they think of Christians. So the cross is also a sign. And I know that on some of the comments, people were saying things like, you're not supposed to pray to graven images and stuff. And that isn't what Christians do with crosses. It's just there to remind us and remind other people that Christ died for our sins. We're not praying to a cross or anything, and it's not a graven image because of that. One of the things that Aaron brought up the last time was that there's these gigantic crosses that seem to be crossing right where the eclipses cross. Two of the eclipses that were crossing, people told us about these gigantic crosses. Cynthia told us about the King is Coming cross, and I think Aaron found one of the other crosses. And in the chat, people told us of another cross that's even closer to the conjunction. So we looked at all these gigantic crosses that are all over the United States, and we found out that since like the 1960s, but especially in the last 20 years, people have been putting up these giant crosses all over the United States. Well, I shouldn't say all over the United States. We're going to look at where they put them up. But when asked, why would you build a gigantic cross? All of them say things like, we're hoping to convert people and encourage Christians. People will come from all around to see it, and we'll baptize them that day. And other people said, well, why do you build gigantic crosses? And this guy that's built, James Potter, who's built 22 of them, said, it doesn't go unnoticed by drivers passing by. It makes people look up and see it when they're driving by. 80,000 people drive by some of these crosses every day. And it makes you feel good to put something up to glorify the Lord. So he also does it to glorify the Lord. But it's a sign to people. They see it. 80,000 people passing by every day see it. And it plants a seed every time they see it. And then another person said that it's to provide spiritual nourishment, so that people who are suffering, suddenly they are filled in a way that they're not by medicating and other things. It tells them that a creator loves them. And then the ark was something we also looked at, the ark encounter that's in Kentucky. And when they were asked, why did you build this huge ark? And they said, most of all, the ark of Noah is a picture of salvation, which allows us to share with visitors that Christ is our ark of salvation today. So the answer to why build these huge crosses and arcs is so that they can talk to people about Jesus. And it gives them something to talk about, like when we wear our T-shirts that say Jesus on them, and when we, hand out a pamphlet or a tract or something, so you can start that conversation. And that's why the people are building those. So where are they? I went on the internet and I found a 3-page list of all the giant crosses, and I mapped them here, and it kind of looks like they're all over the place until you start looking closer at them. And then you'll notice that, yes, there's some directly in the conjunctions, and yes, there's a lot of them close to the line. And then there's a few outliers. If you take out the outliers and if you widen the lines to like people who are seeing a total solar eclipse as compared to people who are seeing almost a total solar eclipse, most of these crosses hit the lines. And if this was a practice target and you were shooting darts at it or something, this is what it would look like. You're trying to hit the lines, and the crosses you're just missing them. So does it mean something? Is it a sign? Possibly, especially the ones that are right on the conjunctions we were talking about. And one of the things we asked you all to help us with is to find a cross or two that was at the conjunction at the top of the Aleph. And we found 2 possibilities. One we're looking more at than the other. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that there's no accident there with that, with where all those crosses are and how it forms an Aleph and a Toph. And what Keith was sharing there, just so you guys know, that was like the total path of like the central part of the eclipse, but you'll still see the eclipse in different parts. You'll still see it wider than those lines that you see there. So think of just a thicker line, and you're going to hit a lot of them. So it's interesting that there's 2 crosses at the peak of the A, and at the bottom of the A, the Aleph. That's the location where we talked about before, the Return of Our Lord garden, which Keith showed before. I think it's called the Return of the Lord, something like that. And then that top of the A, which I think you're going to mention later, but it goes through a town called Omega at that conjunction. So that's quite amazing. We'll show that later. And it's interesting how the arc encounter is above, just like how the arc was above the waters. And it's west of the 5 Great Lakes. Coincidence that it's right beside all the waters, and the waters are above the Aleph. I don't know. It's just here. We're just looking at a picture and acknowledging what it is, So,
Right. And I am going to talk more about like where this Aleph come from and stuff a little later. But we're just starting with the crosses, like Aaron said, and so let's talk about the crosses. One of the crosses that's not on the map is the largest cross. It's under construction right now. It was supposed to be done this year, but they ran into some problems with construction. It's in Corpus Christi, which is right at the bottom of the Aleph, on the very bottom where it's hitting the water. Corpus Christi it's also close to the conjunction of the 2023 and 2024 eclipses, where that King is Coming crosses, sculpture garden. And it was also the site of Hurricane Harvey in 2017, which is the second most expensive hurricane ever in the United States, at $125 billion. And it was happening at the same time as the first Revelation 12 sign in 2017. And we're going to talk about those signs a little bit. But that's the largest cross.
Can I, there's a couple comments in there. I'll just answer a couple questions. Kyle says, question is what does all these eclipses mean? And it says in the Bible that the sun and moon and the stars are for sign seasons, referred to Genesis 1:14, as well as Luke 21. I believe it's verse 25. And Psalm 19 says the heavens declare the glory of the Lord. Usually the word heavens in the Old Testament, when you look at the deeper meaning, it means celestial bodies, the things that are in the sky. And so eclipses, suns, stars, moons are just times for signs and seasons. So it's interesting to track with these solar eclipses, as well as blood moons, and see the patterns, because only God could orchestrate something so crazy and amazing like this. And some people are saying, shouldn't we want the rapture to be delayed so that we can save people? So uh, I love that the heartfelt thought there, but also um, just know that God has a plan. He's got a schedule, and He's going to keep to it. I believe that the rapture and the tribulation has all been appointed from day one. He knows the timing of the rapture. He knows the timing of this great tribulation. He knows when He's going to come again, and He's not going to wait because He just feels like changing it. He's already written it, and we just don't know when it is. And so I don't think He's just waiting around for somebody to just randomly, walk in the ark, so to speak. He has got an appointed time, and so there's no reason to pray that it gets delayed or speeds up. It's already going to happen when it's going to happen. So it's just best for us to understand that His timing is perfect. It'll happen when it'll happen. But what we're trying to do here, Keith and I and everybody else, is we're just trying to find out when it is, just because He calls us to watch in the New Testament, and we don't know when it'll be, but this is how we are watching, and we're just kind of speculating and guessing and seeing His signs and seeing His wonders. And I think it's a really exciting thing to reveal. If this is His plan, it's very exciting to reveal it, and to show what's going on in the stars, and also if this were on its own, that'd be one thing. But then you look at the world scene and you see how nuts it is. It's all coming together like a big puzzle piece. So with that being said, we'll get back to the slideshow here.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I agree with everything Aaron just said. Another one of the conjunctions was the conjunction of the 2017 and 24 eclipses. And Aaron and I found out that there was a cross there, but they took it down after a 32-year battle of people saying crosses shouldn't be up. And they ended up losing the battle after 32 years, and an American flag was put in its place. And then up by the Effingham cross, but closer to the conjunction that Aaron was talking about on the last slide, the conjunction of the 2017 and 23 eclipses, there's a cross called the Bald Knob Cross of Peace. It's 111 feet tall, and it's in the Shawnee National Forest near El Paso, Illinois. So that's the cross that's there.
Yeah,
And then
and
the
you know what?
cross.
I'll do one little correction too. I'm sorry, I'm Canadian, and I said it was Chicago, Illinois in one of my videos, and sure enough, 27 people corrected me, and so it's not Chicago, Illinois. It's the state of Illinois.
Yeah,
And
you Canadians really need to get better with your U.S. geography, please.
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, come
I
on.
just associate Chicago and Illinois, and all of a sudden, bam. So yeah. All right. So, but yeah, so we're showing all these crosses. If you just arrived or you don't understand why we're sharing all these, a lot of these crosses are in alignment with these solar eclipse. The elephant at the top. Okay. So anyway, back to the slideshow. Go ahead.
And the last cross that we're going to talk about is the Coming King Sculpture Prayer Garden that we talked about a lot last time. And it is at the conjunction of the 23 and 24 eclipse. It's at the same latitude as Israel. So taken together, these crosses all mark the conjunctions, or the corners, if you will, of the Aleph, and we believe that God set all of this in motion. He set the sun, moon, and stars in motion to show us signs at the proper time. And these things are coming around, and it's no mistake that He did it. And those are the crosses that we talked about. Those were the first signs. So I'm looking at those as the first signs. They fit with us. So we were here. During the church age, we've been talking to people about Jesus for the last 2,000 years. And we've erected crosses to try to help people see that and ask us questions about it. And so we've been ministering to people. And now the second signs seem to be beginning. And we all know what these are: the beginning of the sorrows. The apostles asked Jesus, "What shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world?" And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. So the first sign is deception. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all of these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So the second sign is wars and rumors of wars. And there shall be famines. So the third sign is famines, and pestilences. The fourth sign is pestilences. And then earthquakes in diverse places. And that's the next sign. And all of these are the beginning of the sorrows. And that's what we seem to be living through now, as the beginning of the sorrows. When you look at the news, and sometimes you can't find this on the news, which is even more scary. You've got to hunt around for it and look at like news agencies of the specific countries. And you see that there's flooding going on all over the place. There's more lightning storms than ever. There's bigger hailstones than ever. There's more tornadoes in a tornado storm than ever. The hurricanes are coming one after another in the Atlantic Ocean right now, even though during this type of La Nina, they're not supposed to be happening as much. And we see these signs. We see these solar eclipses happening on specific places and at specific times and places and very close together, which isn't normal. And God said, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. And that's the verse that Aaron was just talking about. People are like, with perplexity means amazement, like what's going on? And distress of nations. That's what we're dealing with right now. Also, there's fires all over the place. There's earthquakes all over the place. There's a solar cycle right now that's doing things that have never been seen before. Throwing out coronal mass ejections bigger than people have ever seen. Scientists have been looking at the sun for 50 years, say they've never seen anything like this before. Comets going down towards the earth that look like they're red or they're green at specific times and looking like they're hitting specific places in the stars. And God said in Isaiah, therefore I will make the heavens tremble and the earth will be shaken from its place at the wrath of the Lord of the hosts in the day of his burning anger. And then more signs. Neuralink.
One little thing to add to this. Somebody, I forget again, one of these things, maybe somebody commented it or emailed me or something. Somebody said that there's a 96% chance that an asteroid will hit planet Earth in 2027. Something like that. So I don't know who or what they were talking about, but
yeah, I think that was a the government put on a drill saying that an asteroid was hitting in 2027 and that it had a 96% chance of hitting. And it was just a drill, but they put it out on the internet like it was real.
oh, okay.
And it's all over the place like it's real because of the way the government worded everything and everything they put it out on. And it's just weird timing, from me looking at it, I'm like, why would they pick that? Why would they pick that date? Everything they talk about is 2030, 2030, 2030. Why did they pick that date? 3 years away from 2030. It seems strange, I personally don't think they would tell us if they saw one.
Right.
It would cause chaos. And so if there is one hurtling towards us, they're not going to tell us.
Right. Why would they?
Yeah.
And two little light things while we're off topic a bit. September 30th and October 4th. I think they're doing this big debt thing in the States. That everything might really be bad in a couple of days, but maybe they'll just put a Band-Aid over the whole financial system and keep on adding cash. But if they don't, that's going to be a hot mess. Then October 4th, we've got some sort of electronic drill or something like that, So I don't know what's going on there. But hey, a lot of crazy things could happen this week. We don't know. So
yeah. And when these things happen and it's just one of them happens, it's like, oh, and then, but two of them happens and it's like, oh, and then like 17 of them happen, and you're like, oh,
Oh, okay. What are the sun and the moon? Oh, Agenda
oh,
2030. Oh,
they're putting Neuralink brain things in people's heads. Oh, you know, and
GMO ice cream or whatever. I
yeah,
heard that they're
fake.
making. I kid you not. I heard that they're making ice cream out of plastic soon. They're gonna use recycled plastic to make ice cream or something.
That's a great idea.
That's what? Oh,
Then we can give it to our kids,
sure.
and they can recycle the plastic for us. That'd be awesome.
Anyway, it's getting real. Okay, like my goodness. All right, let's put your slide back on. We can get back on
Yeah.
track here, but it kind of relates to this though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. This slide right here, if just one of these things happened, you'd be like, yeah, that's normal. But look at all of them happening. And I had to pick because I only had so much screen space to put things up, but there's wars, rumors of wars, there's the mark, people talk about the mark and look, there's some brain chips. They're allowed to put them in human bodies for study now.
That
And
sounds
Elon
yeah.
Musk said he was going to be the first person to get one. So is he the first
Mhm.
person getting it? I don't know.
Ugh.
And then Amazon, you can now pay for food with your hand. And and that guy's using his right hand, by the way. So maybe someday you have to have a mark on that so the cashier can see that you have a
Mhm.
good social score or something. And they have
Mhm.
tattoo ink now that changes. They can change with computers colors based on social scores or whatever. And 93% of global central banks are exploring digital currencies. And I don't know if you heard, Aaron, but just yesterday or the day before, the IMF said that we're going to do the digital currency. Did you hear that one?
No.
Yeah, the
So
IMF just said, and I don't have an article to prove it, but I saw it on Watchman River, so I believe it. Because he doesn't pull things out of thin air. That they said that they're going to do a digital currency, and everybody's going to use that.
and so who is the IMF?
The International Monetary Fund.
Okay.
So, so maybe that's going to happen. But 93% of people are exploring it. So at some point, it's going to happen, and they're close enough to it that they can do it. And then Russia with the Black Sea grain and that war that's causing problems with people getting their food, and plants in the United States blowing up, food plants blowing up, and then there's wars and rumors of wars and AI and everything else.
I'll show you my
Earthquakes.
T-shirt.
Good job.
You see it?
I'm going to show you guys my
Jesus
T-shirt
saves.
if I can.
I gotta go. Jesus saves it like he's a goalie, Jesus saves.
Yeah, good job. Mine says that the Christians have a great retirement plan.
Christians have a great retirement plan. Wonderful.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Sorry to interrupt. I was just, I like to have fun once in a while. Okay, so
yeah. So in like manner, when ye see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the doors. It doesn't say like this. So in like manner, after a couple centuries of these things happening, I might come. That isn't what it says. It says when you see all these things happening, it is nigh. And this is the first time in history we've seen all of these things happening. So, and I think we all know that. I think even the non-believers know that something's up and something is coming. So let's talk about signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So that's the other verse you were talking about earlier, Aaron.
right. Okay.
Where signs are for the sun and the moon, and the stars are for signs. Number one thing on that list. And this is basically what we talked about last time, is that there was a solar eclipse in 2017, and there will be a solar eclipse in a couple weeks in 2023, and there will be one about 6 months later, 177 days later, in 2024. And when you draw the shadows of those eclipses on the United States, or where they are, when you put them where they are, which is on the United States, it makes a big aleph, which is the first letter of the Jewish alphabet, and it means beginning, the beginning. It can also mean God and things like that. And if you look at the smaller picture on the right, you see that just either of the two of those eclipses with the 2024 eclipse makes a tau, which is the last letter of the Jewish alphabet, which means the end. And Jesus, when he was here, he said, I am the Alpha and the Omega. That's how it's translated in our Bible. But he spoke Aramaic. So he probably said, I am the Aleph and the Tau, which is what is being drawn on the United States and into Canada too, but the conjunctions are in the United States. And so it looks like Jesus is putting his signature on the United States, the Aleph, and I am the Aleph and the Tau. And this could easily be the second sign. So the beginning of the sorrows is the beginning of the second sign. This, I think, could easily be the second sign. If they don't believe the first sign, if they don't believe all 2,000 years of people telling them that Jesus is God, then I'm going to do something so you believe it. And
Yeah,
and this could be it.
This whole theme is really important, and we're going to talk more about that. But that picture there, the Aleph and the Tav, the shape of the A 7-year gap between the 17 eclipse and the 24 eclipse, it matches the Bible numbers, Exodus 4, verse 8. We're going to talk about the day gaps, and we're going to add some more eclipse things. Also, I think Keith is going to present it later, but there's a town called Omega at the at that top conjunction. Oh, you're going to say, okay, yeah, I'm running ahead of it. Okay.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, well, so here it is. The eclipse in Omega will be total. So Omega, Illinois, right around that top eclipse is where that 2024 final eclipse goes over the United States. It goes through Omega, Illinois, and Jesus says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And wouldn't you know it, it goes through the town called Omega at the last conjunction of that Aleph. I mean, oh, the classic line, you can't make this stuff up. So, where is it exactly? Is it completely in the path or just outside of it or what?
It's almost in the 2017, and it's just over the 2024 path.
Yeah,
This is
so
the 2024 path.
yeah. Okay, perfect. It's just incredible. It goes through the town of Omega on the last Omega eclipse.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just another, another thing. Like, it's almost like God said, how many pieces of evidence can I possibly give people? I'm just wondering, is there anybody who's going to stand in front of Jesus at judgment and say, I had no idea.
Right.
I had no idea that this was happening.
I think at this point, to say that you had no idea is you're intentionally choosing not to pay attention to what's going on around you. I think at this point in the game, 2023, if you don't know what's going on, a lot of it is you're just choosing to put your head in the sand. I think at this point, because anybody can go on their phones and their computers and say, just type in the question, when is Jesus coming? Anybody can have a very simple mustard seed of faith and say, when's the tribulation? When is the rapture? Even if they hit something completely wrong and off, if their faith mustard seed is just like, maybe this is real, maybe something is really happening, then they'll
even
find
if
the
they
answer.
even if they type in, why are there so many fires? They're going to find a site that says, because Jesus is coming.
Right. Like, look at all these people on YouTube and Telegram and TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and whatever apps warning people and telling people about something. And even, like I said, even if the information is completely wrong, that little mustard seed of faith is going to say that information was wrong, but maybe somebody else has the answer, or maybe I should read my Bible and, oh, it says that, maybe Luke 21 verse 25. Okay, type it in. Oh, wait a second, somebody's talking about this. Whoa, So at this point, it's just a matter of faith, like a mustard seed faith. Like, is Jesus really coming? And just starting to search. So it's at this point, it's just a lack of. It's just I think it's just choosing not to want to know at this point.
Yeah.
So
that is an excellent way of saying it, choosing, because that's exactly what it is. It's a choice. And, preponderance of evidence about creation. How could this possibly happen? You must choose to say there is no creator.
Yeah,
So
right, right,
perfect way of putting it.
right. How do you look outside and say there's no creator with the way that this world is? A bunch of rocks came together, and all of a sudden we got a moon and a sun and a bunch of squirrels and birds and fish that just are because two rocks hit each other a couple billion years ago? No way, Jose. No way.
Yeah.
No way. Come on. So, and it's incredible how many people believe this kind of a line of thinking. It's just incredible. So,
Yep.
anyway, back to the slideshow.
Yep. So here's the Aleph solar eclipses again. And one of the things we talked about on the last video was the timing of these eclipses. For instance, the first eclipse, August 21st, 2017, happened. That's the first day, or right around the first day of Elul, which in the Jewish tradition is the time where they start repenting. So this is the time of repentance, Elul. They get back, they get right with God, they confess their sins, they go to their neighbor and say, I wronged you. They try to get back, they're supposed to try to get back with God during this month. And when's the first eclipse? When's the first sign, the first eclipse sign? It's on Elul 1. And then when's the second eclipse sign? The second eclipse sign is on Shabbat Bereshit. And that is the Bereshit means in the beginning. If a lot of people have seen CJ Lovick's video on the Bereshit prophecy. Bereshit is the first word in the Bible. It means in the beginning. The reason that this is called the Shabbat Bereshit is because this is when they start reading the Torah over again from the beginning, because it's the first Shabbat after the high holy days. So Shabbat Bereshit is the beginning of starting to read the Torah. It's the beginning of their religious year, because now the high holy days are over. And that's when the eclipse happens, in the beginning.
Yeah, so perfect. And you showed on our last live stream that Bereshit in Bereshit, Aleph Tav is in the center of the first word or the first phrase in the Bible.
Exactly. So the first phrase in the Bible, Bereshit's the first word. The first phrase in the Bible has 7 words, and the middle word is Aleph Tav, which is not translated into English, because if it was translated into English, it would be AZ, because that's what it is. But Jesus said in the Bible, I am the Alpha and the Omega. That's his signature. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He is the Aleph Tav. And that's in the middle of that first phrase that the Jewish people will be reading in their synagogues on that day, which is amazing that that's the beginning. And then the next one that happens 177 days later, and we were looking at those numbers, 177 days later, on or about Nisan 1, depending on the moon. And that's either the end of that year, if you think about it as the day before, or Nisan 1 is the beginning of the Jewish religious year. And lots of things supposedly happened on, I don't know if they actually happened then. They happened, but I don't know if that's when they happened, on Nisan 1. And Nisan 1, I don't think I told you this last time, Aaron, but Nisan, the month of Nisan is when they bless the fruit trees. So,
Okay.
in Matthew, when they're talking about the figs and the fig tree blooming and the fig tree putting forth its leaves, this is the month they bless those fig trees. So, that could have some kind of connection too. I could look more into that. But so these are the eclipses we've been looking at. The crosses are on those conjunctions of those eclipses. And another thing that's interesting is the Revelation 12 sign that we've been hearing a lot about lately, because it's just so amazing. The 2017 Revelation 12 sign happened just a couple weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks after the August 2017 eclipse. So these are related. And then the one that just happened in September, that Hourly Watch did so much on, and other Robert Breaker and so many other people. And you, Aaron, you did stuff,
Mhm.
lots of stuff on
Yeah,
this
I had
too.
Patrick on too a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. You guys like did so much on this, and look, just a couple weeks later, October 14th eclipse. These signs are related.
Yeah, and also to add to this, so I think the official Revelation 12 sign was in 2017. But I also think that 23 was really significant, but I also think that 2030 is the best candidate to sort of resemble this sign kind of again, because it's got the most amount of action in Virgo in 2030, and it's just perfect for a second coming. I'm going to show you a picture later on too on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd love to hear more about that. Like that sounds like a good talk, upcoming talk.
Yeah, because there's an eclipse. Actually, there's an eclipse right in Libra. The thumbnail of this video, the picture of this video, that eclipse that we have a smiley face, looks like God smiling after it's all done.
Uh-huh.
But that there's an eclipse in Libra. That's a Libra eclipse, and the one in June that goes over the churches, the 7 churches, and goes over all the locations of where the Bible was written in the New Testament, which we'll show later, is in June, and that's over Taurus. That's like there's an eclipse right in the head of Taurus in June, and then in Libra in November of 2030, when all this action is going on in the Revelation 12 sign zone in 2030. So yeah, we'll get to that when we get there. But
Yeah,
uh,
signs. If we're
yeah,
here, if
yeah,
we're still here, as Christy would say, right?
right, yeah,
So amazing. Um, this is one of the things you showed me, Aaron, the October 14th Ring of Fire eclipse and
right,
the
oh yeah.
Revelation 12 sign of 2023. It looks like it's a ring on her finger,
hmm
on the left hand of her finger.
So we call ring eclipses annular eclipses, correct?
Right.
So that's when the moon is further from the planet, and therefore it allows us to see a ring. It looks like a ring of fire around the sun. So sometimes when the moon is very close and there's a solar eclipse, you don't see that ring. But this particular one is far from the Earth, so you see a ring. And so this is October 14th, and this ring eclipse, I think it's a massive deal because where is it? It's in the left hand of Virgo, where you would put a wedding ring on October 14th, 2023. What's going on with that? And
Yeah.
this eclipse, which you brought up earlier, goes to Corpus Christi. I don't know if you have another slide talking about Corpus Christi, do you or not?
No,
Okay,
I
so
don't think I have that one.
okay, so it's probably worth mentioning it then. So this eclipse on October 14th, it ends up going through Corpus Christi. Is that right, Keith?
Right. It does.
Corpus Christi means the body of Christ. Is that right?
Exactly. Yep.
So the body of Christ is waiting for a rapture. And this eclipse on October 14th, called the ring eclipse, that's in the left hand of Virgo, goes to the States, and it ends up going through Corpus Christi, which means the body of Christ, apparently. And isn't that something? Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
we're going to talk about Corpus Christi for another reason, the same city for another reason in a couple minutes.
hmm
So, yet another thing.
All right.
It's just amazing. I'm going to say amazing a lot on this video. I hope that's okay.
Right.
Mystery Babylon. So, I've been looking at all this stuff, and I'm an earth science teacher, like I told Aaron, and I was an earth science teacher for 25 years on and off. Um, and mostly 25 years, I guess. And when I look at this Aleph, I'm looking at it like an earth science teacher would look at it. Um, and it is amazing where it's hitting. And that made me think like it's hitting all these disaster areas, which I'm going to show in a second. And it made me think, um, what would happen if all these disasters went off at one time, or like in succession? And it made me think, a lot of people think the United States is Mystery Babylon. It says it's a city, but it could be Washington D.C. or it could be New York. But we hit the criteria for Mystery Babylon pretty well. And so anyway, let's look at the United States as a possibility for being Mystery Babylon. This is all obviously supposition, and
Right, and I agree with the okay, look, I think it's pretty safe to say states is either Babylon or a very large component of the Babylon system. So I think it's pretty safe to stand in that second category of at the very least, it's somehow connected to the Babylon system. The whole world trades with the US dollar. Everybody compares himself to the US dollar. I'm a Canadian and I can speak for Canadians. We don't watch our own TV programs. We watch American stuff. We don't watch our own sports. We watch American sports. A lot of us are just American wannabes. We follow the culture of America. The Americans, well, many of them don't even know where Canada is. It's no offense, but nobody cares about Canada compared to the States. Everybody wants to be, uh, connected with the States, and everybody compares themselves to the U.S. dollar. So the U.S. is at the very least somehow connected to the Babylon system, and I think U.S. has to be taken out of the way near the beginning of the tribulation in order for the 10 kings to rise. And so, but go ahead with your slide here, Keith.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Other than I think we know where Canada is because that's where the beer comes from, but but we might not know where Indonesia is and other
Right.
places.
I
And
I
was
say that
lucky.
I say it comically. I know most
Yeah,
people
I
know where
know.
Canada,
And
but
I'm saying that
yeah,
about Indonesia, not comically, because I think most
right.
people in the United States would not know where that is. Um, because that's just how we're raised here in the United States. Everything is United States centric. Um, and I was lucky enough to travel around the world for a year and visit many places, and I can tell you that attitudes are much different between the United States and other countries, and we're the United States is unfortunately the loser in that realm because of that, because we don't know enough about other countries and their everything. But anyway, getting back to Mystery Babylon, just like Aaron said, there's 10 kings that are supposed to rise. A lot of people have been saying that maybe this BRICS expansion, it could be those 10 kings. Because let's look. If 2030 is the end, 10 kings have to rise pretty soon.
Mhm.
And if 2030 is the end, somebody's got to be Mystery Babylon. And if I look at the globe right now,
Mhm.
Mystery Babylon, where's the rich? Where's the rich people? Where's the rich people that buy and sell things? Where's that's the United States.
Yeah.
So so if it's 2030, BRICS is possibly the 10 kings. And there's 11 of them right now. Maybe Argentina doesn't go in. Eventually, there's going to be 11 because there's going to be one that displaces the other three. But we have BRICS, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. They hate Mystery Babylon, and they shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And the United States calls its president the leader of the free world. We believe that he reigns over the UN. Which is in New York City, and we believe that he uses money to make people do what he wants.
And one little pause there. People in the comment section are talking about flat Earth and round Earth, guys. Let's just walk away from that conversation. It's kind of frivolous. Don't worry
Yeah,
about
whether
round.
it's round or flat, the same stuff's going to happen.
Why
God
don't
is
we
God.
just? Well, I want everybody to convert to whatever Earthers for now. Okay, just for the purpose of this live stream, just be a whatever Earther, and let's just enjoy the information that we've got. Okay, so go ahead, Keith.
So is the USA Mystery Babylon? This is what I found very interesting. And I use the Amplified Bible because it helps me understand what words mean better. But I do, for people who are going to start that argument now, I do look at the KJV first. And then when I need help, I look up words. And that's what I have to do sometimes. And for this reason, in a single day, her plagues, which could also mean afflictions or calamities, will come, pestilence and mourning and famine, and she will be burned up with fire and completely consumed in one day. I added that from the back there. For strong and powerful is the Lord God who judges her. So So here it says the Lord God is judging her, and it's going and Mystery Babylon, and she's going to be burned with fire in a day by all of her calamities. In the last slide, it said that the 10 kings will burn her. So I don't know if God's doing it through calamities or if there's a nuclear thing or something, but something's going to cause this to burn. Mystery Babylon's going to burn. And this is what Aaron got, I think, from a comment, Aaron, in the last thing, that the time between the 2017 and the 2024 eclipse is 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days.
Yeah.
And not only is that significance because of the 666, but when Aaron looked up was it Hebrew or Hebrew 6666? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so that was I believe that was a comment from Crypto Tiger on YouTube, and then I think he messaged me in Discord as well with some other additional or emailed me, one of the two. So and by the way, guys, if you do want to send some info to me, the best way is send it to Discord. That's the best way. Sometimes I'll get 30 emails in one day, and then I'll copy and paste and I'll say, hey, join the Discord, and then people get offended. But please don't get offended if I just reply to you with a link to Discord, because that's my main hub of communication. So sometimes I'll spend 3 hours alone just in my comment section, and then I'll spend an hour on Discord, and then I'll go to my emails like, oh my gosh, 30 emails. Oh man, So please just hit me up in Discord and on YouTube. Those are the main two areas. I certainly read emails, but don't get offended if you send me a novel and then I give you a one-liner. So just try my best to talk with everybody and communicate the best I can. But I think this came to me from Crypto Tiger. And so Strong's H6666 is righteous judgment. And I think that's amazing that the gap between these eclipses are exactly that. And he also, I think you're going to have this in the next slide or very soon, where there's 3 months or 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. Okay, you got it right here. Okay, that's perfect. So, okay, so this other eclipse, there's an eclipse on December 14th, 2020. So that's another really significant one. I believe that was in Virgo as well. I don't really remember. I think it was. But that is the perfect midpoint between these eclipses. And so, yeah, from August 21st, 2017 to this other eclipse on December 14th, 2020 is 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. And some people say, how do you get that? Well, there's a lot of calculators out there that'll do it. I go to time and date calculator to show that. But and then also from that middle eclipse, December 14th, 2020 to April 8th is 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. Only God could orchestrate something so perfect like this. And if that weren't enough by itself, that's incredible. But when did the heebie-jeebie huala huma hama thing start? That everybody gets censored when they say it. That's why we scratched out the words here, because we don't want to get censored. You guys all know what we're talking about. When did that all start? That started December 14th, when they started to distribute the heebie-jeebies to everybody. So, coincidence? I don't think so. I think these eclipses are a sign, and the events that happened on planet Earth lined up with these things. So, quite incredible there. I didn't look at any, what it was 3333 mean. It probably means something significant. Actually, probably should have, but yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I didn't think to look at that either.
I'll look while you're talking. Actually, I'll just make sure that nothing.
I want to go back to this slide because in the last video I talked about this a lot. What these circles were. I just want to briefly go over what these circles are again. The blue circle, the hurricane circle, at that circle was the worst hurricane to ever hit the United States. Galveston, 1900, killed the most people. When I say worst, I mean the most people died. Upwards of 10,000 to 12,000 people died in that hurricane. 7,000 buildings were destroyed. Also, as we already talked about, in Corpus Christi, on 2017, while the Revelation 12 sign was showing, a Hurricane Harvey hit right on that line. And it was the second worst hurricane in terms of money being spent, $125 billion that costs. Um, and that's right on that circle where that cross is, that blue one. And then if you look at the red circle, and I know a lot of people have been talking about this, so most people have probably heard this, but the New Madrid earthquake fault runs right where that conjunction is. It's also over an area called Little Egypt, and there's a lot of stuff about that, which, seems like it's from God. But if that earthquake, if that fault were to go off today, like it went off in 1811 and 1812, it would damage a lot of cities that weren't there in 1811, like Memphis and St. Louis and other cities. And it would cause huge amounts of damage, huge costs, huge loss of life, lots of bridges destroyed, lots of railroads destroyed. Earthquakes that happen in the East, especially in this area, are much more impactful than the ones that happen out in California because of the type of soil that's there. When the 1811 earthquake happened, it rang bells. It rang the Liberty Bell in Pennsylvania. It affects the entire East Coast and into Denver when this kind of stuff happens in the East. So it would impact a large area, and that's only for a 7.7, which is a high earthquake, but we know they can go higher than that. And because we've had 9.0s in Alaska. So if something like that were to hit, that would be devastating to the country. The tornado alley is right between them, and tornadoes have been increasing in numbers in single storms, and tornado alley seems to be shifting more towards the east. But the big thing that could destroy the country in one day is the volcanoes that are up in near Washington and Oregon, and this is crossing right over Oregon, right over Crater Lake, and right over Mount Jefferson, and very close to Yellowstone.
Are you on slide 31 right now, Keith?
I can't see the numbers on mine.
Okay, but you're on Righteous Judgment 6.
Righteous Judgment, yeah.
Okay, and sorry to interrupt. And I will share my screen since we're on the theme, so we're kind of
okay.
I will show that 333 thing. So 3333 in Greek means I summon to myself, send for. So it's, in other words, it's an invitation or called or summoned. So that's pretty cool. I will call you. I will summon you.
Come up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, didn't think of that one, but yeah, that's primarily in the book of Acts, talking about inviting or calling or summoning somebody. And then the Hebrew is meaning a casting, when it was cast aside and things of that nature. So just a small little thing there. But yeah, there you go. Back to your screen.
So if Crater Lake used to be a large volcano, and at some time in the past, and people debate when this actually happened, but at some time in the past, that volcano, that huge mountain, basically evaporated in an explosion, and it made the second deepest lake in the world. That's what happened because of that. And when those kinds of volcanoes erupt, all that ash goes into the atmosphere. Obviously, it wipes out the area around it, but it also goes up into the atmosphere, and it makes the sun darken, which sounds biblical, like it has sackcloth on it. It could make the moon turn red and make beautiful sunsets and sunrises, also that look red and orange. It also would destroy crops. It would, loads of ash piling up that have to be removed. In the air, it would cause glass particles in the air to get into your lungs. It would be horrible. And Crater Lake is still there, and it has been active, and it could blow again. More likely, Yellowstone would blow, which would be something that the world has never experienced in humanity's history, and completely wipe out the United States in one day. And also affect Europe. And the ash cloud would affect everyone. And we wouldn't have to worry about global warming anymore. unless God wanted us to, because that would definitely make the temperature go down for a while, unless something happened to the sun to make that go up. So those are the righteous judgments that we were looking at in the last. We talked about it more in the last live stream. If you want to go back and rewatch that one or watch it for the first time. And we just talked about this one. And here's an example of a volcano putting ash into the sky. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And that sounds like a volcanic eruption. So now we know there's two paths. There's the wide path and there's the narrow gate. We're going to talk about the tribulation first. One of the areas that Aaron told me about, I think maybe Carl told him about this, was that the path of the eclipse, and you can see it on the small picture, the path of the eclipse goes right over Roswell, New Mexico, which is well known for the many rumors regarding the flying discs and things, and that were actually the Roswell Army Airfield actually put out a statement at one point that said we found a disc, and then they retracted it, and that's the statement there. The many rumors regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force Roswell Army Airfield was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of one of the local ranchers and the sheriff's office. And they printed it in the paper at the time. And there's the paper. That's real. That really happened. But we think, most people think, most Christians think that there aren't aliens that are landing on the earth. There are probably other things, but they're going to be used as an excuse when however many millions of people leave this earth and however many millions of children leave this earth. They're going to be used as an excuse for how they left, why they left. And then another area that's very close to the eclipse, but not exactly on it. It's right here compared to the eclipse. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's right there.
Yeah,
is
perfect.
Area 51, located in the middle of a barren desert in Nevada. It's an Air Force installation that is secret to this day. Nobody's allowed to visit there for this day, but it's been hypothesized that it's where they test alien technology that they've recovered from crash sites, and a couple movies have been made about it, and it's pretty cool to think about. But this is probably not true, but it probably will be used as an excuse. Look, the eclipse has passed over these alien places, and the aliens they're the ones that took the kids and took the born again Christian cult, crazy people, and then now we're going to talk about the eclipses up until 2030. And again, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and glorious day of the Lord comes. And here's the eclipse that Aaron told me about in August 2nd, 2027. And you can see that it goes over Egypt, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, partially for Israel. And that it also is hitting most of that economic corridor that Netanyahu has been talking about. That economic corridor goes right through the top of that partial area of that eclipse.
So I think this is a big deal because if 2027 is the midpoint, we have an eclipse going over like perfectly over Egypt, right? And we have all these verses that we could even do a live stream just on this eclipse alone for an hour or two, pulling up all the Egypt verses and going through Exodus and going through the other prophetic books talking about Egypt. And here we have a perfect solar eclipse in the middle of 2027 in the summer there. It also goes over Israel, not the main section of it, but Israel will certainly see this eclipse, like a partial version of it. Well, close to full actually.
Yeah.
But the core of it is really in Egypt in 27. So I think this is a really fascinating find, And yeah, it could be the midpoint ish, give or take. So
Yeah, and it's a good time to mention again that Jewish rabbis believe that things that happen to the sun are for the Gentiles, signs for the Gentiles, and things that happen to the moon are signs for the Jews. And when you've got a solar eclipse, that's the sun and the moon doing things. The moon is covering the sun. So a solar eclipse could be a sign for both. And it's going right over Egypt, which is, says it's going to be destroyed at some point, and it hasn't yet. So in the Bible, everything the Bible says is going to happen comes true. So this could be the timing. And the solar eclipse on June 1st, 2030, which crosses that other eclipse right here. And, like we talked about before, here's another crossing right here and another crossing right here. Right in this whole area, there's 3 crossings of eclipses that are happening in a 10-year period, which, that just normally doesn't happen over land, over places that you're talking about. The Earth's 70% water. Most eclipses happen over water, and most crossings happen over water. But here you have these crossings happening right during what we think is going to be the tribulation, right over these areas that have something to do with the tribulation. And this June 1st, 2031. Do you want to talk about this, Aaron?
So yeah, this is a big deal. I just found I think Keith pointed me in this direction, or not Keith, Carl, and so this is a big deal. All right, so this eclipse in June, which could be the second coming year. I'm not saying that this is the second coming, but this is very special eclipse. You see how there's the 7 churches there in Turkey. It was written in the first chapter 2 and 3 in Revelation. So this eclipse goes over all that, but this eclipse also goes over the Patmos Island, which is where the book of Revelation was written. And it also goes over all the locations like Galatia and all that. So maybe what I'll do is I'll share my screen and I'll just show some pictures here. But this red line that on Keith's screen, just take a mental note of where that is. And now I'm going to switch over to my screen and show you this. So hopefully you guys can see that. Looks like you can. So it goes over all this area. This is a picture from my Bible, the back of my Bible. Maybe I'll go back to the screen and make us bigger, or make it bigger. Sorry. That's this. There you go. That'll make it a little bigger. You can see it a little better. And I'll make it slightly bigger here. So you can see how this eclipse goes over here. This is where Paul's 3rd and 4th journeys were. He's traveling all over the place. But you can see Corinth. We know the book of Corinthians. There's that. Thessalonica right over there. Philippi, Ephesus, Ephesians, Galatians. And so most of the Bible was performed and written in this area. And so we have an eclipse going over Patmos and going over the 7 churches and going over where the New Testament was essentially written. And that's in the summer of 2030. I'll show you one other picture. So this is really fascinating. Same kind of picture, just to show you just a different angle. And again, we've got Ephesus, Antioch, Philippi, Thessalonica, and Corinth. But so that's June 1st, 2030. And where is this eclipse in Stellarium? Well, it is, let's see if I got the right one here. Oh, my screen's kind of frozen here. 1 second. Let's see what comes up. Okay. Okay. Hopefully my screen is on there. It looks like it is. Oh, it's going black. Come on now, computer. Let's see what we got. Sorry about that. I don't know why it's all white. Let's just refresh the page, see what happens here. Okay, redo. So June 1st. Let's get it real quick here. So this eclipse, which was presented by Carl, thank you, Carl, It's in the head of Taurus. Let me get it to the right thing here. Isn't that cool? Can you see it, Keith?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. So this eclipse in June, as the eclipse goes through the seven churches and essentially the land where all these New Testament was written and addressed to, it's in the head of Taurus between the horns of the bull. Wow. Right in front of Orion. That's perfect. That's perfect. And Pleiades, the seven stars, we've talked about that possibly being representing the seven churches as well.
And they're right there.
Right there. Right where the eclipse is going through in the first place. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yep. They're for
So,
signs.
yeah. So let's see if I can, let's see. Is this June 1st? Is this June 1st? Is this June 1st? It is. Okay.
That is. Yeah.
Let's blow up this video and let's just show it's like a 10-second video from time and date. It shows you the pattern of it. And there it goes over Lake Patmos and over all the area where the New Testament was written, and it goes over all of Russia. Ends around the whole Chinese area or whatever, and just a perfect pattern there. And then the one in 2030, I'll show you that one. I think this is the one in November. Let's see if it is. Looks like it is.
So that
Yeah.
last one was in 2030, June 1st, 2030, and this one's November 2030, right?
Yeah, this one is after all the feasts, and then I'll show you on Stellarium where it is on Stellarium. So this looks like a big smiley face, but I'll just let the video play out. But Israel would end up being in the right eye. Like if this is the smiley face, Israel would end up being in the right eye of the face. Then I'm just reminded of those verses, the apple of my eye and things of that. That could be a whole other study as well. But let me see if this other Stellarium will pull up here. And if it won't, I got to reset it here. And I got to show you where it is. I got to reset it here. So that's November, I think, 25th, right?
I don't remember the date for that one.
Pretty sure it's November 25th. Let's go see where it is. And then that should be in Libra. My computer's been acting up lately with all the signal and everything. Okay, so maybe it's the 24th, or let's just get to it kind of quick here. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so it's in the claw, more or less, and in Libra, right after the feast, when Jupiter's there.
So that's the scales, right? That's judgment.
Mm-hmm. So that's the end of 2030, when it looks like the solar eclipse is smiling on Earth, like finally justice and judgment has been served. Finally, I'm hoping that's the case, And the reason why I like 2030, since we're here, I might as well back it up a month or two. And so we have, this is the end of September, right around the fall feast. Okay, not too concerned right now about the actual day, but Jupiter is perfectly in Libra. Venus and Mercury are at the head of Virgo. We have Mars in Leo. We got the Moon coming in. Well, that would let's just bump it forward a couple days. So Feast of Trumpets would be around here, September 29th or something of that year. And then so that means Atonement would be somewhere around, something like that, October 8th, when Venus and Mercury are in conjunction. Perfect.
Yeah, look at that.
They're go a little closer, but yeah, Mercury and Venus are more or less in conjunction in the arm of Virgo. The Son of Righteousness will come with healing in his wings. That's the last book of the Old Testament. And we have Jupiter in the judgment scales. I love it. It's just a perfect alignment for 2030. And then 2 months later, we have an eclipse in Libra. And it goes over underneath Israel with a big, you can't help but look at it as a big smiley face.
Yeah.
So here's that smiley face once again. So very, very exciting that this eclipse goes over, this eclipse in June goes over where the Bible was written in the summer of 2030. And then after the fall feast, we got a big smiley face. That's what it looks like to me anyway.
Yeah. And again, it's just like if it was just that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just a pile of things.
Yeah. So maybe since I have my thing open, I'll just skim through my things and then we'll get back to your slideshow. So
Okay.
I have all these things open. Let's just see here. Oh yeah, so I wanted to show this, even though I think you showed it, but there's Omega. That's
Right. The
right
town of
beside,
Omega.
right beside Salem, and that's where that conjunction is going to be taking place, October 8th, Alpha and Omega. We showed you these 4 things. What's this here? Patmos. Oh yeah, here's the island of Patmos. That's where this eclipse is going to go through in June of 2030. What is this? I don't even know what this is. Okay, let's just skip that. Oh, wait, this might be oh, yeah, okay. This is a bunch of eclipses from 2021 to 2040. Okay, so this is another thing worth noting, that this eclipse that's happening in 2030 right here. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit. It looks like I can. So this eclipse in 2030 over, Patmos and where all the New Testament was written, it's not going to happen again until 2060. So an eclipse in this zone, I should even say, it's not going to happen again. Nothing close to it's going to happen again until 2060. So I think that's pretty significant as well. This is just a thing about Sukkot, so don't need to read that. That's just a calculator. Facebook, don't need to read. Oh, here is okay. We're going to show you this one. Corpus Christi is a feast, and it resembles the body of Christ. So that eclipse on October 14th, 2023, is going through Corpus Christi at the end. This I did like a 1-hour live stream at the beginning of the year with Brother Samuel, but I wanted to just highlight this particular page, and he reminded me of it when I asked him some questions. And yeah, we could talk about this forever, but the vision of Ezekiel from 40 verse 1, when you calculate the date, it's roughly around 573 BC. If you add 1260 years to that, it lands you at 688 with this right here. What's this thing called again? The golden
Dome of the Rock.
Yes, Dome of the Rock. Sorry. So 1260 years from that, the year of the vision brings you to that. And then you add 1260 years, that gets you to when Israel became a nation, 1948. And if you add 1335 years from 1688, that gets you to 2023.
Yes. The blessed are those that make it to there. That's what the Bible verse says in Daniel.
That's right. So that could be a really excellent parallel. Now, I did get an email from another gentleman that was suggesting
Can I add one thing onto that too?
Go ahead. Yeah.
3.5 months. If you look up how many days are average in 3.5 months, it's 1,279 days. And if you add 1,279 days to 688, you get 1967, which is when we got the all of Jerusalem. And there's a Bible verse, I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is. Maybe somebody can tell us in the comments, that says that the Gentiles will trample the outside courtyard of the temple for 42 months, which is on average, 1,979 days. So, and that's what happened. They trampled Jerusalem and then we got it back.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. And I will add one little thing. Now, we all know that these years can be a year or two off, so this 688, you could bump it either direction, So one little fun thing here. So this first year, 573, if that year is 2 years off, so if it's 571, that is 2,600 years to 2030. So that means it's 52 Jubilee cycles of 50. So 50 times 52 is 2,600. And that's 52 Jubilees cycles of 50 to 2030. Yahweh 10565 is 26. So 2,600, 26, Yahweh 10565 that's how many Jubilee cycles it is from, if this is slightly off, to 571 to 2030. Just worth noting, worth bringing up. I don't know how accurate that is, but either way, if you take the 573 BC date, you got some real cool presentation here. And if you bump it back a year or two, then that would line up perfectly to 2030 as well. So that's just food for thought. And then was there anything else that I had on my slides? I think that was it on my area. So we'll bring your slides back up.
Okay. And I'm almost finished.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that, lunar eclipses, here's the upcoming lunar eclipses that are coming over Israel. These are total lunar eclipses. There's some partial ones that are coming up. In fact, one's coming up in October, a partial one. This first one is on Tu B'Av. The second one is on Purim Hebron. And the third one is on the Festival of Liberation. And Purim Hebron and the Festival of Liberation are Jewish holidays that are like more civic than religious. And the 20th of December is also on Purim Hebron or close to it. So these dates will all mean something to the Jewish people when they happen. And if these are signs for upcoming possible things, judgments, then it will mean something to them at each of these eclipses.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we wanted to talk about the narrow path, the rapture, and what happens to us afterwards. And what I'm going to show here is just math. This is just math. I'm not setting a date, and I'm not, although a date will be said, I'm not setting a date. This is just one possibility in all the possibilities that could happen. But upcoming, we have October 6th, which is the last day of Sukkot, which Aaron talked about at the very beginning of the presentation. And that date is called Hoshana Rabbah, which means the great salvation in Hebrew. And during that service of that last day of Sukkot, I always say it wrong, Sukkot, the people in the synagogue will go around the bima part of the tabernacle 7 times, and they will ask for salvation, and they will say, God save us, God save us, God save us. 7 times they go around asking for salvation, and at the end of that 7 times, it says they say something that says, and then a shout is heard from heaven, and they don't say what the shout says, which I think the shout's saying, "Come up."
Wow, I didn't realize that. They walk around what 7 times?
7 times the bima, which is where the altar, I guess, is. That's where we get the name Bema Seat of Christ from. The bima, it's like basically
really?
like,
Wow,
yeah.
that's cool. Okay, they walk around the bema seat 7 times and say,
Well, it's just the
"Save us."
bima, not
The
the
bema.
seat, but
Okay,
yeah.
so they walk around it 7 times, say, "Save us."
And they say, save us from this and save us from that and save us from not having water. And there's a whole liturgy, exactly what they say.
Wow.
And then they say, and then we heard a great shout, and that's the end. That's the end of their service.
Wow.
And, and they're hitting willows. They're beating willows on the ground to get rid of their sins. And it's just a different service. It doesn't happen any other time during Sukkot. And then the next day we were talking about Shemini Atzeret.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Dr. Barry All was talking about that date too. And that is when circumcision happens, you were saying, I think, Aaron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Atzeret means to tarry. And I know there's a verse in how do you say it?
Habakkuk. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That says, I will not tarry, so it seems to fit with that. And that happens on October 7th. So I'm thinking maybe Hoshana Rabbah is a possible high watch date, or October 7th. Mm-hmm. And then, as you know, in Genesis 7:4, it says God told Noah and his family to get on the ark. And then 7 days later, it started to rain. So there was a get on the ark. and then 7 days later. And we're told that these are like the days of Noah. So possibly there's a 7-day warning there for us, or 7 days that we're away before the catastrophes happen. And then we have October 14th, which is the Shabbat Bereshit eclipse in the beginning. Possibly that's when catastrophes start to happen.
Wow. Yeah, this is really lining up as you talk through this, brother. Yeah, this is really
Yeah.
neat. Yeah.
And then 1,260 days later, according to Revelation 12:6, the woman is taken into the wilderness and protected for 1,260 days. And then that would take us to March 27th, 2027, which could be the abomination that causes desolation. And depending on which calendar you look at, that could be the Shabbat of the red heifer, or the Shabbat of the Tezav, which means command, and or it could be during Passover. And red heifer, obviously, we've all been following the red heifers, and the fact that there are red heifers and they can be turned into purification, their ashes can be added to water to purify people. Tezav is where priests are ordained. That's where the instruction is given to Aaron and his sons on how to ordain priests. And we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. And also how to do each of the types of sacrifices for sin and sacrifices for other things. And then it could be during Passover. And like Aaron, you were saying that the devil likes to mimic God, right? So what better time than...
Yeah, so we're always dealing with this 1 month off thing, 1 month. So even when you check the Torah calendars and you check the Shabbat calendars and you go, and, there's always this discrepancy. But if we just kind of keep it simple, if we get raptured fairly soon, Passover of 2027 could be the midpoint.
Right.
It fits really well to do that, to mimic God in that way. And then you brought up the red heifer Shabbat there too, depending on the calendar you're looking at.
Right. And then 1,290 days later, if you look at Daniel 12, I have something on my screen, 12:11, that says that after the abomination of desolation, there's 1,290 days until the end. When Daniel asked, when's the end? And he said 1,290 days. And then if you take 1,290 days on time and date, you get to October 7th, 2030, which is Yom Kippur, which many people believe is the date of the second coming. And we're allowed to know the day and the hour of that. So the second coming. And then if you add 45 days more, which would be the 1,335 days for the total fulfillment of that verse, it takes you to 25th of Sheshvan. And that is the only month that does not have any holidays or special mitzvahs, which are orders or commands. We are taught that it is reserved for the time of Moshiach, which is how the Jews say Messiah, who will inaugurate the third temple in the month of Sheshvan, or maybe that's New Jerusalem. So just looking at the math, if you look at October 14th, the first eclipse, and add 2,550 days, you get October 7th, 2030, Yom Kippur. And somebody, Gary in the comments told me about this, by the way. So I added his little thing here.
Yeah, and one little thing too. And look, we're all speculating. We're trying to crunch our numbers and make the best presentation. Another thought in theory is that there is actually 75 days after Yom Kippur. Okay, so if you kind of bump back the midpoint 30 days, then that means you got 1,260 before Yom Kippur, and that would mean you have 75 days to play with after Yom Kippur. And if that's the case, that would bring you to Hanukkah. So you would add 75 days to Hanukkah after Yom Kippur. So again, we know we're struggling with this 30-day 1 month off thing, and so maybe God's going to do it in a slightly different way than what we're presenting here. But I have always liked the idea of 75 days after Yom Kippur fulfilling these day counts from Daniel myself. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Right. And then what happens to us? And um, Revelation 1:6, and another place in Revelation, I think also it says, and hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. In the Jewish tradition, the chief priest lived in the temple for 7 days before Yom Kippur to practice. In Leviticus 8:33, which we were talking about with the Shabbat command, tizava, however you say it. The priests who were getting ordained, they had to stay in the tabernacle for 7 days. And that's what we'll be doing. We'll be going up and we'll be staying in heaven or the tabernacle or mansions or someplace for 7 days. And then we come down with Jesus 7 days later. And also Jesus used the metaphor of the wedding ceremony. And in that wedding ceremony, for 7 days, the bride and the groom are in the wedding chamber. And I believe the groom's allowed to leave, but the bride has to stay there for 7 days. And then they come out and have a feast.
Right. So, Keith and I read the Bible 2 days ago. I'm like, hey, Keith, you want to read some, quote unquote, boring chapters of the Bible? He said, yeah, okay, let's do it. So we read Leviticus 8. And I mean, this was for me a massive rapture proof and a massive reason why this tribulation is 7 years as well. So Leviticus 8:33 through 36, in order to get the priest ready, you'd have to go into the tabernacle for 7 days. And then you can do your priestly duties. So who are we? Well, he wrote it, Revelation 1:6. We are kings and priests. He's talking to the church in the book of Revelation. So if we're a priest, we need to be consecrated. And for how long? Well, the Bible says 7 days. And so 7 days in his kingdom, while 7 years is going outside the temple on planet Earth. We have a rapture proof before the 7 years. And he's consecrating the priests. How fitting and how perfect to fit this into the priest analogy. And if you want to go down the side of the whole bride thing, well, that's a 7-day thing too, as for Galilean wedding. So either way you slice the cake, it fits real nice. And Yom Kippur was the big day that the priest would atone for the sins of many and do all the rituals that they did in the Old Testament. Lots of readings about, sprinkle the blood 7 times on your ear and all this kind of stuff all over the place. So lots of sevens.
Lots of sevens in Leviticus.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What's the next slide here?
And this is the end. And ye shall not go out of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation in 7 days until the days of your consecration be at an end. For 7 days shall he consecrate you. Leviticus 8:33.
Right. So if he needs priests in heaven, he needs more than 3.5 days to consecrate us. You know what I'm saying, guys? So that's just his law. I didn't make up the law. He made it the law. He made it the rules. God made the rules up. And so it doesn't make sense that we're there for 3.5 years and then we come back, because that breaks his own rules, and he's not going to do that. And so there's your 7-year pattern right there. And but anyway, going on down. Is that your last one that you got?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So let's just summarize our thoughts here, and I'll hide this. And yeah, so give us your summary of this video.
Well, I'd say that if you're looking, like we already said, if you're looking at just one sign, you say, okay. But you just look at the compilation of signs. And the compilation of signs is telling us that God's coming very, very soon. The signs say he's coming in, his second coming is 2030. I think there's like 40 different ways you can get to that. If it's 2030 and it's a pre-tribulation rapture, then he's got to come in 2023. It's 2023 now, and it's only going to be 2023 until, for a couple more months. And then you look at the eclipses. The eclipses, if I was to draw at something on the United States showing the worst possible disasters to happen, it would be a big aleph on the United States. And I would hit every horrible disaster, naturally made disaster that could happen. And that's exactly what happens. You have the aleph and the tau on the United States. God has his signature written in moon shadows, sun shadows, moon shadows on the United States. There has to be a new Babylon. One of the countries has to be the new Babylon or cities and get destroyed. The United States looks like it's the perfect, especially lately, looks like it's the perfect one for that. Also, something we didn't mention, I think we brought up in chat the other day, was that somehow the Jewish people have to get out of the United States and go to Israel. And there's a verse that says, my people come out of her. That could be the Jewish people leaving the United States to go to Israel when all of these disasters start to happen. Because if it's Yellowstone, that happens in the West. There's time for the East, the people in the East to leave. And I believe most of the Jewish population is in the East. So there's the Aleph and the Tav. There's the disasters. I don't know. What would you add to that, Aaron?
I think what we're doing here is, I've been talking about 2030 as a second coming, as a potential second coming. You know, we're always speculating, but 2030 makes the most sense in like 40 different ways. You do the math in the Bible. Judas sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. Judas sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. You got your 20 and your 30. 20 divided by 30 is 0.666666666. That weren't enough. King David died 3,000 years before 2030. Jesus comes from the seed of David and will rule on David's throne. They are expecting their Messiah to come from the seed of David. We have these Agenda 2030, if that wasn't enough, this evil plan. We have these solar eclipses really showing a picture of destruction in 2024. If that weren't enough, we have solar eclipses that surround Israel in 2030, where over Patmos Island and where the majority of the New Testament was written, which won't happen again until 2060. 2027, an eclipse over Egypt, possible midpoint year accident. I don't think so. We are close to the 6,000 year plan. In Genesis, he tells Noah, I'm not going to strive with man for 120 years, but I think he was actually saying 120 jubilees. 120 times 50 is 6,000. I believe that we are approximately 7 years away from year 6,000, which I expect to be the second coming. It's been almost 2,000 years since the cross. By 2030, more or less. We can't really push this much further. We've got the math to prove it. We've got the solar eclipses to prove it. We have the evil plans proving it. We have the palm scanners ready to go. We've got the cameras in all the stores. How else do you want to show us that this is right around the corner? So in terms of simplicity, what I'm going to say is that if the rapture doesn't happen by 2014, November 14th, because that's really about 7 prophetic years from Day of Atonement in 2030. Then we got to really go back to the drawing board and go, what did we miss? When's the second coming? We got to restructure everything by around the middle of November if we're still here. It makes complete sense for us to get out of here anytime between now and the middle of November. Complete sense. It makes perfect sense for us to go within the next few days or weeks. Why would he have a solar eclipse in the left hand of Virgo on October 14th? Is he just doing that to tease us? I hope not. Why would he have that eclipse in the head of Taurus in June, the perfect representation of judgment and chaos? And why would he have a solar eclipse that looks like a smiley face right under Israel in 2030, right after the fall feast? And that eclipse is in Libra, which represents judgment, when it's got all the best planets in that zone in Virgo. It's like when you look at a bike wheel and there's all these spokes, and there's like 60 spokes, and they all point to the center. It's like they all are pointing to this season. If you just read the text of the Bible alone, it points to now. If you just look at the sky, it points to now. If you just point at the evil plans, it points to now. If you just look at dreams, it points to now. It's like we're close. We gotta be. We just have to be.
Right.
So that's my summary. And yeah,
And we didn't even talk about Israel, like
right.
all the stuff happening in Israel, economic corridor. Israel's in the center of it. Gas, they found all this gas. And where is it? It's in the Leviathan, deep in the Mediterranean. And they're supposed to be, Gog and Magog is going to Israel for boot, loot, right? And the war's close to everything, like you're saying, like anything. If you look economically, it looks like it's going to happen. If you look at the stars, it looks like it's going to happen. If you look at the weather, it looks like it's going to happen. If you look politically, it looks like it's going to happen. Like I don't know. If it doesn't happen, like I seriously will be amazed.
Well, we just keep on going, so
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I'll just keep going, but
going. And everybody should know we just always are speculating. We're always guessing. We're just putting our best studies forward and presenting it. So we're not prophets. Keith doesn't claim to be a prophet. I don't
no,
either. And
not a
so
prophet.
please don't text in the comments that we are false prophets for presenting information.
Definitely not a prophet.
I think
Definitely didn't hear this and
Yeah,
didn't have a dream,
right.
didn't have a vision, just
Yeah.
read things and added things together.
Yeah. And I think it is, we as video people on YouTube or wherever, I think we do as presenters need to be careful not to say that Jesus told me this and the Holy Spirit showed me that. I think that's not wise to do that. So if you hear somebody saying the Holy Spirit led me to do this and that, be very, very cautious with that kind of line of thinking. I think it's best to just say, hey, this is what we're guessing. This is the presentation, and take it for what it is. And so, yeah, remember that we're guessing and speculating and just trying to point people to Christ. Most importantly, get into a relationship with Jesus. That's the most important thing. I got my thing in the back saying get tight with Christ. Got my salvation verses in my description box below. It's your choice where you want to end eternity, where you want to end up for eternity. I hope you choose the Jesus side, because that's the only way, the only truth, and the only way to have eternal life is through Jesus Christ. So thank you, Keith, so much for doing this with me. And if you want to get a hold of Keith, hop in our Discord. If you want to get a hold of me, please hop in the Discord. We do studies and talks and voice chats very regularly.
It's an awesome place.
And I will certainly probably take some stuff from this video and do some shorter stuff or whatever. A lot of information in this video. I pray people can absorb a lot of the things that we said. There was a lot there. So, okay, te carici. Go, Jesus, go.